we're not here to have the Shining Force 1 versus Shining Force 2 debate, though maybe someday we will. What is for certain though, is that Shining Force 2 does a much better job with its story and world building, and that includes its villains, which we're here to talk about today. As always, our tier list for bosses will be based on how good their story is, how fun the encounter is, the design of the boss, and how much I like them, and in the end, that's really all that matters here. Before we start, I'm loosely defining the bosses as enemies that appear in the hidden endgame battle, though that's not the case for a mystery opponent. So let's dive in. You might not have even thought the dark smokes we fight in the bottom of the ancient tower are bosses, but they certainly are. First, they move twice per turn, and second, and perhaps more importantly, their sprite mates are steeped into the lore of the game. Hell, the very first thing that happens in the game is directly tied to King Gransil being possessed by one of these guys or their close relatives, then having it expelled by Astral only for it to take over King Gallum. Just a thought, I wonder how different the game would be if King Gransil and not King Gallum was possessed. But what does the Dark Smoke do in battle? Well, not very much. The Dark Smoke aren't much stronger than the enemies you've already encountered. They hit slightly harder and can, from time to time, inflict silence on your units. Perhaps the most intimidating thing about them is their large movement range combined with their aggression, so they could catch you unaware and pick off a weak unit, or silence Kazan or Sarah at the worst possible time. Honestly, if they weren't so lore important and didn't appear in one of the best story moments in the game, they'd be trash, but since they do, we're gonna put them into fine. These guys can't even do more than 1 damage to Kiwi on standard difficulty. As you talk to the natives around Polka Village, there are rumors something lurks in the water. But surely these are just local legends. Then, as we come to the fork in the river, our raft stops suddenly. It's unnerving. Something is wrong. Then bam! Out pops the Kraken, and you know you're in trouble. As the battle starts, the first thing you notice is that this isn't set up like a normal battle. We're stuck on a raft and we don't have much space to move. The next thing you'll notice is that, oh my god, these arms and legs are strong, and oh my god, that head is moving twice per turn. There are 2 ways to do this battle. The first way is to slowly and methodically take out each of the Kraken's limbs and wait for the head to get close to the boat and overwhelm it. The second way is to take Peter and Luke straight to the head and rush to kill it before it kills you. Just make sure our pal Luke's got a healthy supply of healing drops. I've seen forum post after forum post that basically say, "Help, I'm stuck at the Kraken, what do I do?" This is a truly unique and transforming encounter that requires strategy and thinking, something that many of the other boss encounters fail to do. I always think that a boss needs to have some level of story around them to truly reach the legend tier, but the Kraken proves me wrong. This boss is unique enough, hard enough, and just damn impactful enough. It is indeed worthy of the legendary tier. If you encounter Tauros without Road and the Achilles sword, Bowie and Peter will run away from this guy in fear. That should tell you everything you need to know. Tauros is a giant, and perhaps that's selling it short, a colossus that protects the caravan, a vehicle you need to access in order to continue your journey. If you try to attack him, all of your attacks, both magic and physical, will not affect him. The only way to damage him is to attack his Achilles, with the Achilles sword, which can only be equipped by Bowie, which means yes, Bowie will need to fight this guy head on. I hope you've been leveling him up. Making this even more fun is that Tauros will attack twice, bringing even a promoted Bowie to his knees unless you heal him constantly. Oh, by the way, you'll need to heal him from a distance, because one of those 2 attacks Tauros has is Bolt 2. Why does such an intense battle have such somber music playing in the background? If you take things slow, or just juice Bowie up with the power ring, you'll come out okay. I think Tauros is going to end up in the great tier. I really want to put him in legendary too, but we can't put everybody there. And for as cool and unique as his fight is, it's also kind of an easy one once you figure it out. The chess battle with the king and his army might be my favorite battle in the game. After being accidentally shrunk and added to the desktop kingdom, the force encounters the king and his army. You can actually talk to each chess piece prior to and after the fight, and they'll tell you how they help in battle. In order to win the cotton balloon, which will allow the force to escape to the floor below, we must defeat this chest army. Let me tell you, this is no small feat. See, each of these chess pieces is stronger than anything we've already fought, and they're arranged in a way that you can't really pick them off one by one. Eventually, you will move too close and they will swarm. You've probably noticed we haven't really talked about the king yet, and that's because without his army, he's not that strong. And on top of that, he has a habit of joining in with the swarm, which can be the thing that saves you in this battle. As you're being overrun, all of a sudden the king will run in and start attacking, and you'll make the decision, we can't win a battle of attrition, we need to aim for the head. 4 or 5 good hits from the Force and the king will fall, his army will surrender, and you'll have time to lick your wounds. Ranking the king is hard. He's not special, he has no story, and he's really the weakness of his army. But damn if this battle isn't special. I'm just gonna put him into good. For reference, if I were to rank this battle, it's definitely legendary. The Willard? This rat is a boss? It sure is. After you escape the Desktop Kingdom, you have to make your way through the tunnels in the wall to escape. And on the way, you'll encounter, well, rats, with one being a bit bigger than the others, a little bit more HP, and a little stronger, and that's it. This guy is incredibly forgettable. I'd argue the Hobgoblin in the tunnel on the way to Polka is more of a boss than the Willard, and if you noticed, he's not even on the list. Trash tier, without a doubt. Zalbard has taken over Metula's temple and captured the ground orb, rendering Metula helpless. From behind her temple doors, his voice beckons us to enter the temple. Knowing he will be the first greater devil we ever fight, we enter with trepidation, and we are right to be afraid, because Zalbard is a monster. Armed with an extremely high physical attack and a Bolt 2 spell that can chew up your force before we can get past his water barrier, Zalbard is an aggressive foe and will dive in to take your force out if you are not paying attention. There is definitely a difficulty spike here, and I can admit that in my younger days, he was a stumbling block. We're gonna go with great tier here, and probably behind Tauros. Zalbard can be terrifying, and he's probably the first boss where having him move twice can result in our force being overwhelmed quickly. I know he really doesn't sound like much, but I just can't get over the memories of watching him slice through my force like butter, again and again and again. Camilla is a cunning character, right up until the last moment we face her in battle, where her facade falls away. We first meet Camilla when she disguises herself as a young girl and lures us into a trap on the bridge to Tristan. Showing herself to be a bit of a wild card, she warns us about Zalbard and Gessup after we thwart her plans. This is the crux of her character. She's always squabbling with Gessup about what actions to take, and this costs her dearly when we finally encounter her at the entrance to the Nazca ship. Gessup abandons Camilla and her army at the start of the battle and leaves the strategy up to Camilla, and she falls flat on her face. This is the biggest knock against Camilla. She's got a large army, properly lined up, but deploys it at random. The iron ball she uses to attack with hits quite hard, but sometimes she makes the silly decision to use it to cast Blaze 3, which hurts, but hurts much less compared to her smacking us in the face. Her decision making causes her to go from a terrifying encounter to a fairly easy one, and once defeated, she makes her final betrayal of the devils by handing the force to Skyorb before she is burned alive by Gessup for being a traitor. Usually, it's the lack of story that drags a boss down on this list, but for Camilla, it's her actual fight. You could make the storyline argument that it makes perfect sense for her to be a pushover, given that her strategist is gone, and you'd probably be right, but it doesn't change the fact that she and her battle are lacking. We're just gonna end up putting her in the good, but ahead of the king due to how much storyline activity she does have. We're having a nice sword and sorcery game when all of a sudden a robot, a flying ship, and laser shooting flowers show up. The technology has arrived. The Prism Flowers are the sequel to the Laser Eye, and unlike Shining Force 2, they are underwhelming. See, the Laser Eye was terrifying because it could possibly one-hit one of your characters, if you got in the way. The Prism Flowers are more of a death by 1,000 cuts, which would be scary if they were arranged in a way where they could, I don't know, gang up on your characters, but you can pretty much move through them one at a time, and while the Laser Eye has an exhilarating countdown and a mad dash across the bridge, the Prism Flowers just attack without ceremony. Okay, so I don't like this battle, but the game does at least try to build up these guys. Gessup uses them to shoot down the Nazca ship as you're flying across the ocean to Grand Seal. It's a pretty awesome scene, and it's the reason these things aren't going to be in the trash. I'll be honest, they weren't even gonna make the list till I went back and double checked who was in that secret battle. Their relatives, the Zeon Guard, also appear in the final battle, and are equally uninspiring to me. In the end, these guys are fine, and ahead of the Dark Smoke I guess, since at least I remember them. Now let's move on to better things, just like we do in the game. The Red Baron is Kain. Both have the Dark Sword, both turn good after you beat them. How did it take me 25 years to make this connection? Revelations aside, the Red Baron is set up as a fearsome foe. We start to hear rumors and tidbits about how the Red Baron is terrorizing the countryside, killing Sheila's fiancé, and heck, just killing so many souls that his armor is stained red with blood. When we face the Red Baron, we do on a massive battlefield, and after we cut down his army, we come face to face with the devil. How hard this fight will be depends entirely on RNG. The Red Baron can cast D-Soul using the Dark Sword, which is an instant kill. Sometimes this will miss, and sometimes it will hit. If it hits often enough, things can go sideways quickly. And if it always misses, well, it's a pretty easy encounter. Honestly, if D-Soul doesn't hit, Lemon's not that much better than the Willard. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration. This one is a bit hard to rank. If I'm just talking about the Red Baron, he's probably just good, but there's so much tasty Lemon backstory we really haven't touched on, and it's enough for me to push him up to great. And behind Zalbard, just because the Red Baron never really inspires fear in me. Defeating the Red Baron does finally get us revenge for Lemon jumping us outside Howl's house and beating us when we were unaware. I know the game doesn't count it as a defeat, but I remember it. Gessip has been here since the beginning. If we watch the full intro, we see Gessip stalking King Gransil from the shadows, watching over him as he's targeted for possession. Gessip, and I'm pretty sure I've been saying his name wrong all video, is largely responsible for the story's tone change when we get to North Parmesia. Gone are the days of being a happy globe-trotting force. We're now in a war with the devils, and there are signs of it everywhere, as each town we come across bears the scars of Gessip's manipulation. We meet him tangling with the soldiers of Polkalon and trying to possess the great hero Higgins, and after some struggle, we manage to thwart his plans. And this is a scenario that plays out again and again. Gessip devises some way to trap the Force, and the Force escapes again and again. He's almost like a cartoon villain in this way. Eventually, Zeon gets tired of his failure and sends him to deal with us personally. And of course, he's got some tricks up his sleeves, or more appropriately, some burst rocks. These landmines are scattered all over the battlefield and will explode if you defeat them, or even if they just feel like it. Fortunately, they aren't too strong and will mostly be an annoyance, but if you aren't paying attention, they can still pack quite a wallop. When we finally engage, Gessip is a worthy foe. Featuring a high attack and the Freeze 4 spell, there's no one in your force who will be able to survive 2 attacks from Freeze 4, and heck, some might go down to just 1. After his defeat, the Force will spare Gessip. Zeon, however, will not, as Gessip is burned alive for his failure. You almost feel bad about this until you remember that he did the same thing to Camila. Gessip is present for maybe a third of the game, and he has an interwoven storyline with both the other Greater Devils and the Force. And he has a pretty good battle to boot. He's gonna land in great, ahead of Zalbard. He might have been more intimidating if we saw his successes, especially the tragedies that probably occurred in Mound. But we mostly just witness his failures, which sorta brings him down a notch. Odd Eye is the best written boss in Shining Force history, and I say that having never played Shining Force CD. We first encounter him in Polka, as he's mysteriously fleeing from a battle in the mountains. Meek, blind, and with no memory of his past life, the mayor begs us to take him with us. And because we're such a benevolent force, we do. You'd think Volcanon would remember this guy, but you can walk right up to him with Adler in tow and he'll say nothing. What a dick. As we leave Creed's mansion, Creed will ask to have Adler stay with him. Being a former devil, he knows who Adler is, but he doesn't tell us, so we say goodbye to him with a smile on our face. And that's the last we hear of him. For a while, all of a sudden, a very familiar man shows up talking to Zeon as we cross into Parmesia on the Nazca ship. He knows, and we know, what fate has in store for us. We will need to do battle at some point. It's not an if, but a when. When we do finally confront him, it's on a battlefield of glass over a pit of lava. He's sorry, but he must kill us. So, I don't really know how to say this. I don't like this battle. It feels overlong, and the gimmick of the floor falling out from you is scary at first, but it's less scary when you realize the parts of the floor that are falling aren't all that close to you. The fight with Odd Eye can be intense. He has a strong attack, like every boss, and an AoE laser beam attack. He can also be hard to separate from his guards, which can cause things to go sideways fast. Those necromancers know Freeze 4, and they will use it. After he's defeated, tears are shed, and he wishes he could relive his life, but not as a devil. Odd Eye is the best written villain in the game. He has an amazing story twist that I did not see coming, but his battle is going to make me drag him down to great. I'm aware this is probably a bad take, but his fight is just not as fun to me as the other legendary bosses. Roast me in the comments, guys. King Gallum is a homicidal, suicidal, genocidal maniac. At least, that's the case after he's possessed. I still wonder how the story would have played out if King Gransil was possessed as originally intended. Does the war with Gallum still happen? Does Gallum put up a better fight than Gransil? Can somebody please do a military analysis between these two kingdoms? Back to Gallum. He orders his army to invade and wipe out the town of Grandseal, then kidnaps and drags away Princess Ellis, and then we just never see him again until much later in the game. As you enter Xion's chambers, Gallum greets you and the battle begins. And unlike Oddeye, this one is a ton of fun, because King Gallum, like the Chess King, is super aggressive, which can lead to you engaging him and maybe 5 to 6 other enemy units at once. It can be frantic watching him cut you down with Demon Breath and his heavy attacks. Luckily, he's built like a caster, so you can focus him down pretty quickly. Even after you defeat him, his body still fights on with Xion's help. It's only after Lemon drags him down into the darkness that we say goodbye. A fitting end to the king to be taken down by his loyal servant. Gallum is a very impactful enemy in the game. Without him, we might not even have a game. He's there from the start and he's there at the end. And if he didn't disappear, he'd be legendary. But we're just gonna land him in Great, behind Oddeye and the intimidating Tauros. He really does play an intimidating tyrannical figure at the start of the game. The second Xion overpowers the evil spirit in Creed's mansion, you know we're truly dealing with the king of the devils. After being sealed away for generations, Xion is released from his prison by Slade the Thief and immediately works towards possessing King Grandseal and then King Gallum. With Gallum under his control, he works to secure the ancient tower. At the time, the Force is unaware Xion is behind this, but the truth comes out as we continue throughout the game. After the ground under Grandseal is blown away, Xion, like Gallum, takes a back seat in the story. Unlike Gallum though, he and his name pop up from time to time. Volcanon is rather upset we've revived him, and Creed is taken aback by him, but it's not until we fly to Granz and he introduces Oddeye that he becomes our direct adversary. He throws minion after minion at us, and if we don't kill him in battle, Xion is more than happy to finish them off himself. He does not tolerate failure. Finally, after fighting wave after wave of devils, we come face to face with him. We walk up to him, enter the attack command, and then watch in horror as his HP bar does not move. Armed with a massive area of effect damage spell in Demon Breath and a high regular attack, the fight with Xion is a battle of attrition. If I could sum up Xion in one word, it would be intimidating. With an endless amount of HP, it can feel overwhelming, but if you play things wisely, he will fall. Xion has flaws, but like I said, he's so intimidating in both the story and in the battle that he's gonna land in Legendary. And I think really, he's gonna go on top of it because he's just so much more important to the game than the Kraken. He's like Dark Soul and Dark Dragon all rolled into one. And that's the end of the Shining Force 2 bosses. But wait, you say? What's this question mark? Yeah, there's one more. Let's dive into it. No boss or battle has halted my progress as much as this damned wooden panel. We loot it from a random chest and we're supposed to place it in a tree in Ribble to unlock an underground passage that contains the Achilles sword, which you need to progress the game. Damned if I could ever figure out what I was supposed to do here, even if there is a person beside the tree giving us a big hint. I used to play the game until this point, then reset and start all over again because I could never figure out what to do here. This and that damned dragon head in Shining Force 1 have been the bane of my Shining Force life. We're gonna place this thing in a level below trash. It's gonna go into the burn it with fire tier. It won't be able to hurt me anymore. And now, finally, that's all the bosses and boss-related things we're gonna talk about. So, let's do a recap. We've got Xion leading the way in Legendary. I think he's a great way to end the game, and he feels intimidating throughout. Then we've got the Kraken, who's just iconic. Moving to Great, we've got Oddeye, Tauros, King Gallum, Gessip, Zalbard, and then the Red Baron. These guys could really be in any order. Lemon being at the end bugs me, but then again, we're talking about the Red Baron here, and not Lemon. Camilla and the King are in good, both fun to deal with, but both are lacking in certain ways. The Prism Flowers and the Dark Smoke are down in fine. Both, you could argue, aren't bosses, but they aren't as worthless as Willard, who is down in the trash. Oh, and that wooden plank? We just want to see it burn. This might be the end of my Shining Force 2 content, for a bit anyways. I've had a blast doing it, and thanks for joining me along the way. Maybe someday we can argue about what Shining Force game is the best. 1, 2, or maybe even 3. To end, let's watch some wood burn. Who says I need therapy? Adios.